Lots of excitement around the Raiders' offensive skill players. But where are we when it comes to the Raiders' offensive line? That plus more on Wednesday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for May 14th, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. Definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast, or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate both. The show continues to grow each and every day because of your support and the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes on the YouTube page, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. We definitely appreciate him. Takes a lot of work to make us look good and sound good by way of the YouTube page, but Ari does a great job, so shout him out. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well, as many of you do, at your boy Q254, and we have the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. Gonna switch things up a little bit on today's show. Segment number 3, you're going to actually hear from former Raiders offensive lineman, longtime left tackle Donald Penn. He was a part of my radio show on Tuesday. You're not going to hear the whole conversation, but we're really going to focus in on the offensive line, where he's feeling about the Raiders' 2025 vision under Pete Carroll, Ashton Jeanty. Just probably about 5-6 good minutes with Donald Penn out of the 20-minute conversation that I had with him on my radio show on Tuesday, but it goes with the conversation we're going to have here on the show. So that'll come up in segment number 3 as we close things out. You'll hear from former left tackle Donald Penn. Segment number 2, we'll use the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Got a really good call from Tuck Rule Fool from Colorado, and I actually took this call, took it to my radio show on Tuesday, and turned it into a 3-hour show. Believe it or not, we had a 3-hour show based off the conversation that Tuck Rule Fool had about the Raiders offensive line and how we possibly could be drinking Kool-Aid similar to what we did in 2024 when we were looking at the Raiders run game thinking, hey, Zamir White did really good the last 4 games of 2023. He could take the place of Josh Jacobs, and we all know that didn't play out for one reason or the other. So that was a struggle when it came to the run game. So Tuck Rule Fool has his concerns about the offensive line. You'll hear his call. We'll break it down, have a little discussion about that. Segment number 2. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day. We'll jump right into it after I tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. I'll tell you more about them following segment number 1. But today is the day. NFL schedule release officially drops 5 p.m. Pacific time. So, of course, on tomorrow's show, we'll be talking about it. We'll be breaking it down. When's the bye week? When do the Raiders go on the road for the first time? How many road games in a row? We'll dissect that schedule, and we'll spend plenty of time, multiple days, multiple shows talking about the schedule. And I know there's a bunch of slow leaks going on right now, that slow drip process that's going on with the NFL. And then there's also Twitter accounts, social media accounts, NFL schedule leaks. I don't worry about all that. I had a few people send me some direct messages. Hey, Q, what do you think about this? Looks like this could be legit for week 1. I'm like, look, man, 5 p.m. Pacific time on today, we'll know exactly every single game that the Raiders are playing, all 17. We'll know when their bye week is. We'll know when their home opener is. We'll know when the primetime games are. We'll know all the answers to the questions coming up at 5 o'clock Pacific time. So look forward to that. But today is the day, and everyone is fired up about it. The NFL obviously does a hell of a job making a big to-do about everything. So that'll come up coming on tomorrow's show. Now, to some news and notes that have taken place, the Raiders continue to sign their draft picks. They had 11 of them, and so far now 10 out of the 11 have signed after on Tuesday. 3rd-round pick, cornerback Daren Porter out of Iowa State. He signed his rookie contract. So only wide receiver Jack Bech, the 2nd-round pick from TCU, he's the only one left. Would not be surprised if that deal gets done today, right? Gets done in time for, another round of OTAs coming up, and that'll take place next week at the Raiders facility. So, again, not that there's any question that it's going to get done. It's just nice to see it when it actually does get done. But Daren Porter's a guy that I'm really excited about, and I think there's a few nuggets in his background that maybe everyone's kind of overlooking and not really thinking about. We look at his size, 6'2", 195. We know he runs a 4.3, right? Picked 68th overall, came out of Iowa State, right? I talked talked about how I like guys from Iowa State, played in 64 games, had 51 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, and 6 passes defense. That's 2019 through 2024. And as a senior in 24, earned honorable mention, all Big 12 honors after playing in 12 games and having a career high 18 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3 picks, 1 blocked field goal, and 1 block punt. His 2 block kicks in 2024 were tied for the 4th most in FBS, and his 5 career block kicks are the most by any player in Big 12 history. That's where I think that people are kind of overlooking what Daren Porter brings to the table. You don't block a punt. You don't block a field goal on accident. That doesn't happen. That is 100% want to, right? I mean, I'll say that it takes a somewhat of a skill set to be able to do it, but that's just showing that you care about that play. A lot of times guys are on special teams and they feel like, oh, I'm just a special teams player and I'm just going to go out there and go through the motions. Do I really need to block this punt? Am I really going to get a chance to block the punt? What's the chances I'm actually going to get home and do it? What's the chances I'm going to be able to block this field goal? To be able to do that, and he's done it 5 times in his career between 2019 and 2024 at Iowa State, at his length, 6'2" and 195. Obviously, he's got the speed that I mentioned. That's want to right there. And if that doesn't fit Pete Carroll-led team, I don't know what does, right? Competition, going out there and competing on every snap, not letting one snap get away and say, oh, it's just a punt. I'll try to set up a block so my guy can have a nice return or whatever the case may be. No, he's out there trying to make a play. And I've gone on many rants about the Raiders and their special teams unit. I've given glowing reviews over A.J. Cole. He's fantastic from the punt position, right? He's a great punter. And we know Daniel Carlson's a great kicker. We call him Cash Money Carlson for a reason. But outside of that, the Raiders special teams units aren't that great. Are they good at getting down and tackling? Sure. Kick coverage? Sure. They do fine there. But where's the big threat? You know, wherever I talk about threats in special teams, I always talk about the return game, whether it's a punt return or kick return. But also a threat is blocking a punt, setting your team up for success by, giving them a short field or maybe even scoring. That was something that I gave a lot of respect to UNLV's wide receiver, Ricky White. He did a really good job at blocking punts, getting it into the end zone, and scoring the touchdown for UNLV. And again, that's want to by the star wide receiver. Daren Porter, big-time cornerback, right? This is a guy that's up there making a position group switch from being a wide receiver to being a cornerback, but yet he still has the wherewithal and the want to get out there and get it done special teams-wise. He always takes all 3 elements of the game to be able to win, all 3 phases: offense, defense, and special teams. Special teams is so forgotten about so often until something goes wrong in special teams, and then you realize how major it is. But if he could bring that kind of skill set to this Raiders organization where that could be a threat, and I'm not saying that's going to happen every game. I'd be foolish to think that. I mean, it happened 5 times in his 5-year career at Iowa State. But if you have a guy that other teams have to pay attention to, hey, watch out for Porter. He's really good at getting in here and blocking kicks or blocking field goals, then there's a good chance that maybe it opens it up for someone else. And they make a mistake because someone's trying to overcompensate for his abilities. So that's an element of what he brings to the table that I don't think is being talked about enough. And I do like that. And now Daren Porter, 3rd-round pick, is officially under contract. I had Bryce Butler, former Raider wide receiver. He was on my radio show on Monday, and I had him on because he played with Derek Carr in 2014. So, wanted to see what he thought about DC when it was announced that he was retiring on Saturday, and just kind of get his thoughts, as he was already in Oakland when Derek arrived in 2014 and became the starting quarterback. But that's not what I'm bringing to the table. What I want you to hear is what Bryce Butler has to say about the direction that this team is going under head coach Pete Carroll and how excited he is. Remember, Bryce Butler's a guy that played for Pete Carroll at USC. So here's Bryce Butler talking about the direction of the team under Coach Carroll.
I mean, I love it. Pete Carroll coached me in college. I know what he's going to bring. Compete, win forever. He's going to bring a style of play that brings the joy back in football. You got a third stringer that hasn't really been able to sniff offense or defense, that's just been on special teams, but has been grinding his butt off trying to get on the field on offense or defense. And Pete Carroll's going to give that guy that opportunity, right? If he's outperforming the one or the 2, he's going to give him an opportunity to play. And that's the same reason why Geno Smith ended up getting the job up in Seattle, right? So he's going to bring a spark back to the Raiders organization that may have not been there for a while. I think we've been suffering on the offensive end pretty much since Derek left. Our defense has been fantastic, led by Max Crosby. I mean, the defense has basically been holding our team together the last few years, but we have not had an offense to go out there and be competitive, putting points up on the board and moving the ball. And I know the way Pete likes to play football is physical. It's, run game, rush attack. And, obviously we got Ashton Jeanty. We got some guys up front that we picked up in the draft this year. Obviously we have Brock Bowers. And I always forget the other tight end from Notre Dame because he went to Notre Dame and I'm a USC guy, so my bad, no disrespect. But we have, we're going to basically be 12 personnel for the most part. And, we're going to use Brock Bowers as a number one receiver. We picked up two guys on the outside as well that can complement. Is it Jacoby Myers? Yeah.
Yep, Jacoby.
Complement Jacoby Myers on the outside. So, man, I think what we're going to see a team that can keep their offense on the field, keep the defense off the field so they can just hunt when they are on the field and get after guys like Pat Mahomes, and, the Broncos quarterback and, Herbert or A-Bear, whatever he goes by. I don't care about nobody else but the Raiders. You feel me?
I heard that.
So I'm excited, man. Pete Carroll's going to bring fun back. Obviously, he has great charisma, and guys are going to have fun again. That's Pete Carroll's thing. He's not worried about nothing else, but let's have fun and let's go out there and compete.
Bryce, how does Pete Carroll do just that? How does he get the most out of his players and bring that fun and joy back into the game, which you see translate onto game days?
You know what? Pete Carroll is basically an old school coach with a new guy feel. I always think of him as like, but nowadays, you got content creation, you got YouTube and all that stuff. He's a YouTube coach. And what I mean by that is like when you're walking in the meeting rooms, he has a basketball goal up. He's going to call about 5 guys up there to shoot some free throws, and get the juices flowing. They're going to compete there. He's going to show highlights of practice of the best one-on-one clips. Guys getting embarrassed, guys catching nice plays, nice passes, nice plays. And he just brings energy, dog. Like, he doesn't care how you dress. He don't care what you wear to the hotel. He don't care about none of that. All he cares about is you protecting the team, number one, and going out there and doing everything that you can in between those white lines. And if you can do that, you're good with Coach Carroll. And I think a lot of players, especially when you get older, you're in the league, you don't want a coach that's maybe nearly your age telling you how you have to dress, right? Going to the airplane or stuff of that nature. And he just lets all that go, and players feel like they can be free, and all they have to do is focus on football. And you know how it is, Q. If you could just focus in on football and we ain't worried about all the shenanigans, all the politics, and none of that bull crap, you can be real successful playing football.
I thought that was really cool. And I'll be 100% honest. I had Bryce on to talk about Derek Carr. I didn't have Bryce on to talk about Pete Carroll and his time at USC because, to be 100% honest with you, I forgot that he played at USC until he brought that to the table. And he was so excited and had so much great stuff to say. And you heard, 4 minutes right there, but I talked to him for about 20 minutes. And everything he was talking about when it comes to what Pete Carroll's going to do, the direction that this team is going, how excited he is about Ashton Jeanty, a lot of really good stuff from Bryce Butler. But I definitely wanted to bring that to the table. I actually wanted to bring it to the show on Tuesday and just ran out of time in the segment. Didn't want to go too long, so thought I'd hold on to it and play it today. So hopefully you enjoyed that. And I like to hear from former players, especially of the organization, that are looking at the team and saying, I like the direction that they're going. I believe that this is the right coach in place, GM in place, decision makers in place to get this bad boy where it needs to go. So that was former Raider wide receiver, longtime NFL wide receiver, Bryce Butler, as he was a guest on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, on Raider Nation Radio 920 on Mondays. So what about that offensive line? Where is this conversation coming from? Tuck Rule Fool from Colorado gave me a really good call that was talking about the offensive line and how it felt like a little bit of deja vu. You'll hear the call. We'll break it down. We'll do that in segment number 2 on today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about the title sponsor of the show, and that is FanDuel. The NBA playoffs, they're in full swing. Every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. And FanDuel makes it so easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. Player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I even have a play that I'm looking at that I have a good feeling about in the Warriors and Timberwolves game. And I know the Warriors don't have a chance to win this series, but I'm looking at Draymond Green, total points and assists over 15.5. Just going ahead and throwing that out there. I believe that's at -115. Don't quote me on that, but go ahead and check it out. I was looking at it earlier, FanDuel.com. I think that's going to be a sneaky good pick. So as much as I want the Warriors to win the game, that's what I'll be focusing on to see if Draymond Green could go over 15 when it comes to total points and assists. So we'll see if I'm right or we'll see if I'm wrong. But which players are showing up in the biggest moments? How could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? It's so simple. It's just as easy as I picked out Draymond. You can too. Plus, $200 bonus bets to add excitement if your first $5 bet hits. So what do you have to do? If you're new to FanDuel, it's perfect time to sign up. Head into FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets just like that. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. The only call that we'll get from the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line today is from our guy, Tuck Rule Fool from Colorado. And the reason I want to do this is because it became a really good discussion on my radio show on Tuesday about the Raiders offensive line, something that we all discussed before the draft, right? The whole time back and forth between, the end of the season, free agency, the combine. We talked about the offensive line, skill position. Is the offensive line where it needs to be? Well, here's Tuck Rule Fool from Colorado talking about the offensive line and how it's feeling like deja vu when it comes to the running game that we saw with Zamir White in 2024 after he had a good finish to the season in 2023. Here's Tuck Rule Fool.
Hey, Q. We got Tuck Rule Fool from Colorado calling in. I got a comment, and it's kind of a little bit of deja vu, where we thought last year, we really won't miss Josh Jacobs anymore because of the production we got in the last 4 games of, in 23. And we kind of built our running game based on that. And if you had an interesting podcast a few days ago where you're saying, in the past years, we were kind of like, well, we got all these questions and we're hoping, but this year it's not. We got proven that. We've got proven coaches, and it's a lot more that we don't have to guess on. But one area that I really think we are guessing, and we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, and makes me nervous, is the offensive line. So if the offensive line wasn't that great, it was actually downright awful. And I know it got better, but again, that sounds like our running game. So I'm wondering if we're drinking the Kool-Aid here, because if you don't have that offensive line, like a lot of your experts have come on and said, we're going to be great, and it's all built on being able to run. So Jeanty's awesome, I get it, but without that offensive line, I don't really know. So I think a little bit Kool-Aid action is going on here, and I'd like to see a little bit fortification of that offensive line, or at least maybe going through camp and we see, inter-game scrimmages or preseason, but at that point it's a little too late. So if I had one question mark, I think that would be it. Curious to hear what you thought.
So there was the call right there, and I think there's some validity to it, right? I mean, he's talking about, and you heard him reference the podcast where there's so much that we do know, but the offensive line is an unknown, right? I mean, the good thing is Kolton Miller, he's back healthy. I'm assuming, and maybe it's a bad assumption, but I'm assuming that they're going to get something done with his contract so he doesn't have to play with no guaranteed money, but I feel pretty good that they're going to get that taken care of. JPJ, as he told Ashton Jeanty, I'm your center. So I feel very confident that he's going to be the starting center. DJ Glaze going into year 2, just like JPJ. He'll probably be the right tackle, but either way, he's got a spot on the offensive line. Feel good about that. So that's 3 spots that I feel like are pretty solidified. So now all of a sudden, here comes the rest of the equation. Dylan Parham, Jordan Meredith, Alex Kappa, Dalton Wagner, Thayer Munford, rookies Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant, right? Where do those guys fit in? How do they fit into the equation? How do they hold down the left guard spot and the right guard spot? If we feel comfortable and we all are in agreement that left tackle is held down, right tackle is held down, and center is held down. Parham's going into the last year of his rookie deal. It means it's a contract year. Jordan Meredith did a heck of a job. You see that they re-signed him. He did a better job than most expected in 2024. So maybe he's a guy that they slide into a position. Kappa could easily be, some competition and some depth. Dalton Wagner is a guy who's a big mammoth of a man at the tackle position, but even going back to Arkansas, he was a guy that was often injured. That's why so far since he's been in the league, he's been on IR. Thayer Munford, I feel like he's a swing tackle, right? He's a guy that you could put in multiple different positions, but when given the chance to like hold it down as the starting right tackle, or even when he had to slide in and be the left tackle when Colton Miller was out, he didn't do it good enough consistently. And I know he said he's more comfortable at the left tackle spot, but you've got to be able to hold down something. When he had the opportunity last year, going back to training camp, he looked like he was going to be the starting right tackle. On the first day, he gets injured, and that's what opened the door for DJ Glaze, and DJ Glaze never looked back. And then there's Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant, right? The rookies. I think one of those two guys is going to definitely have some kind of a pretty prominent role with this Raiders team. I don't know what that's going to be. It's something that they're going to have to earn in training camp. And then the bigger question, and maybe a concern as well, depending on who you are and where you're coming from, the offensive line coach. That's Pete Carroll's son, Brennan Carroll, right? He's the O-line coach. He was the offensive coordinator at Washington last year. He was the assistant offensive line coach in Seattle from 2015 to 2020. So is he going to be the guy that's going to be able to hold it down and design this offensive line and have them going in the right direction and all rowing the right direction, right? The boat all going in the same time. Like one band is what do they say? One sound, one band, or whatever. What is it? One sound. Why do I always do like phrases and stuff? Why do I always do those bad? What is it? It's one band, one sound. I think so. It sounds right, but that's what it is. So that's what I'm going to roll with. That's who they got to be. They've got to be one band, one sound. Let's just roll with that. If it's wrong, it's wrong. So be it. I'm going to roll with it anyway. It's cool. But the point is, as you know, the offensive line is so important to be all on the same page. That's what I'm trying to get to. They all got to be on the same page. And so when I was talking to Donald Penn about the offensive line, this subject, this call even, I was asking him about, and, just talking about how important is it that they've got to learn what each other can do quickly, all get on the same page with each other. And, the biggest problem that the Raiders have had over the past few years when it comes to the offensive line is what? They've never had the five guys picked out and solidified quickly. When Josh McDaniels was around, how many weeks into the season was it before they actually found who their starting five was? And then even with Antonio Pierce last year, it was kind of like, I think it's going to be these guys. I think this guy's going to be able to hold it down. Oh, this guy's injured. This guy's, been out all training camp. Like, it was never, one cohesive unit. So they've got to be able to find their five and start working together. And Donald Penn, and you'll hear it coming up in segment number 3, he actually lets us know about a drill that's going to be very important in camp. It's called the pod drills, and I'm actually excited that I know that. I wrote it down after he said it. I'm like, man, I'm gonna sound smart one day when I talk about this, and I ask either Pete Carroll or Brennan Carroll or somebody within the organization, how important is it going to be for this offensive line to come together? How much will you learn from the pod drills? But you'll hear Donald Penn talk about it, explain exactly what that is coming up in segment number 3. But I think what Tuck Rule Fool is talking about drinking the Kool-Aid, I think there's some validity to it, because as he said, we're giving this coaching staff the benefit of the doubt. Like, there's no doubt about it. They're going to go in there and have that offensive line cooking. I think the only thing that we could say is in a better position right now with the offensive line than it was last year is the health. I think that's the biggest thing. I know that they've brought in other guys that can compete, but even Alex Kappa, he didn't do very well last year at all with the Bengals, right? So, that's no guarantee that even him being a depth piece, he's going to go in there and really help solidify that. So I think that there's a good concern there, and that's, again, why we had that conversation leading into the draft. Like, is it important to solidify that offensive line? Go and get a real high pick on the O-line, like a tackle or a top guard if you're going to, or go get a skill player. So you went and got the skill player. I don't think anyone has a problem with that, but now you want to maximize what that skill player could do. And not only him, but the other skill players around him, the Brock Bowers, the Jacoby Myers, the Trey Tuckers, right? The Thorntons, the Big Mikes, like all these different guys that you can get the ball to. Geno Smith has to have some time. And I do think one other element of this, Jack Besh, I think another element that's going to help this offensive line, which gives me a little bit more, confidence than I had, last year, is the fact that guys like Jacoby, guys like Jack Besh, guys like Big Mike, they're going to be able to block as well. And Geno Smith has just enough wiggle, and this is not a shot at Aiden O'Connell. He has just enough wiggle where he can also help move the pocket a little bit, roll the pocket a little bit. Ashton Jeanty catches the ball in the backfield really well, even though that's not, a strong part of his game from 2024. But in 2023, he was able to do that. So that gives me hope that this offensive line is going to be where it needs to be, but ultimately, you know what it is. They have to be all on the same page, and you want them to be there as quick as possible. Donald Penn told me he'd like to see them a solidified offensive line by preseason game number 2. You know they only have 3 now, and it'd be nice to have it solidified, set in stone, who's going to be your starting 5 and comfortable with that by preseason game number 2. Speaking of Donald Penn, you'll actually hear what he had to say about the offensive line, the direction that the team is going under Pete Carroll. Even talks about Derek Carr and what he brought to the organization while he was the left tackle, starting left tackle, blocking for DC, and talks about his retirement, schedule release, and more. You'll hear from Donald Penn, a longtime offensive lineman, former left tackle for the Silver and Black. You'll hear that in segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Want to jump into a fantastic conversation that I had with Donald Penn, former Raiders offensive lineman, left tackle. He's a guy that I've had the opportunity to do pregame shows with in the preseason as JT the Brick is doing like play-by-play for radio, and so we take over the pregame show and even the postgame show. So had a real good opportunity to get to know DP, do shows with him, understand his personality. And so knowing that I was going to have the conversation on my radio show about the offensive line, I wanted to definitely get him and his thoughts onto the show. Plus, I wanted to ask him about, Derek Carr retiring and just what he meant to the Silver and Black. So you'll hear that as well. But DP really breaks it down. I thought it was really good stuff. We talked for about 20 minutes. It's usually a typical Q radio interview. It's usually about 20 minutes. My man Ari is always like, all right, Q, you got to wrap it up. All right, Q, we got to get to break. And I just keep it pushing. And anyone who listens to this podcast and knows it's supposed to be 23 to 28 minutes, and it never is, you understand. I just get on a roll, and that's how things go. So we'll just go ahead and jump into it. It's about 7 minutes of what Donald Penn had to say on my radio show on Tuesday. And we started off, just talking about the offensive line and how it can come together. And if you don't remember, Donald Penn was part of that car insurance, right? Donald Penn, Kelechi Osemele, Rodney Hudson, Gabe Jackson, Austin Howard, one of the best offensive lines that the Raiders have had in a very long time. So if there's anyone they'll know about O-lines, it'd be Donald Penn. Here's that conversation. How long does it take? I mean, the Raiders offensive line finished the season last year really good, and so it has a lot of people believing that they're going to be really good this year. But this is, new staff, new coaches, there's some new players that are going to be added to the mix. So how long is it going to take in your mind for them to get all on the same page and be able to be one unit?
Well, the good thing is they get to start a little early, but it's going to take a little while, but they have enough time. I don't think it's going to take during the season. They should be rolling by during the season time. They have all these OTAs. It's a new offense they have to learn. So they're going to be able to get that, and they're going to have all these OTAs to work on their timing and technique and getting it down. That's the most important thing. You got to get your time and technique down. You got to get used to the running back. The running back got to get used to you so you hit the hole, see how he's hitting it. The running back got to get a flow of how we're pushing and moving guys so he knows when to cut the ball back, when not to. So he has to get a good understanding of that scheme. So during OTAs and especially during training camp, that's going to be important. But I think we have enough time. The thing is, the most important thing is how are these guys that played last year going to progress into next season? Dylan Parham, he's been doing great. I think this is a contract year for him. So you always know when it's a contract year for a guy, they play their best ball and it's extra incentive. So I'm looking forward to him going. But really, besides that, and Cody Miller, maybe our center, Jackson, I think all the other positions are wide open. So I really want to see what these draft picks come in. I'm definitely planning on coming and visiting training camp because I want to see what these draft picks are looking like early to see if they're going to be able to come in and help us. But for our team to be able to see this year, our offensive line is to pick up from where we left off last year and keep building and have to be a force for this team because I feel like if we give Gino some time and we open up some holes for Ashton, it's going to be a offensive season.
Lincoln Kennedy tells us all the time that the way that you practice offensive line work is not what it used to be. Right when he played, and I'm sure when you played as well, it's evolved, it's changed. You don't have as much contact. How much more difficult, if any, in your opinion, is it to practice being a tough offensive lineman, a really skilled offensive lineman, with the way the CBA is set up now?
I mean, it's tough. It's very tough because, during OTAs and stuff, which it's always been like that, but you can only do hold the pads. You know what I mean? You don't have pads on to actually hit. But during training camp, it's tough because you don't have that much time. They're cutting everything down. Because when I was with the Jaguars last training camp, I didn't know it got that short. I mean, the guys are leaving by 8 o'clock. We weren't getting out there till 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night. They're leaving at 7 o'clock now, and it's mandatory from the leave these days. So it's hard to get as much time in there and to get as much physicality because these guys complain so much about hitting, and that's how you get your timing down. That's the most important. The way to get your timing down is to actually hit and get physical in practice so you could trade that off to the field. So that's the tough part, but one way the Raiders want to do it is they're going to throw in some pod drills. They're going to throw in team run almost every single day. And they're going to have to grind. They're going to have to grind. But one thing I know, Pete Carroll's, this is going to be a hard training camp. Every time you get a new coach, it's going to be a hard training camp. And Pete Carroll coming in here trying to change this change the culture and everything. It's going to be a very hard training camp. But, yeah, it's going to have to be a very physical training camp. He's going to have to put a lot of pod drills. Pod drills are like when you have right guard, center, left guard, tackle. And then you have you have two linemen and linebackers, and you run plays. And then you go to the other side. And you have the left guard, center, right guard, left tackle. You get to get a lot of plays in there. You get to get a lot of hit in there. And that's where you get to work on your combo blocks and stuff like that. Besides not working on them in team run, because the good thing about working on them in pods is the defense knows we're running the ball every single time. So that makes it that much harder for the offensive line to be able to get their technique and get their timing down because the defense knows they don't have to play pass. So, it's a good drill for us to really get good and get going. So they have to do that a lot this training camp.
We're going to get the schedule coming up tomorrow. When you got the schedule as an offensive lineman, as a player, getting ready for a training camp and all that other stuff, what were you looking at? Like, what was most important to you when you got your hands on your schedule?
When the bye week was.
Okay.
No, it wasn't because I wanted to vacation or do anything I hated early bye week.
Right.
I love the mid-season bye week because that's when you really need it. Because when you had them early bye weeks, like after week 4, that's a long stretch.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long stretch. So that's one thing I used to look at. Where's the bye week? And then if I did have a bye week, I would pray that I would have like a late Thursday night game so I get that weekend off because your body needs to heal. It's a long season. And then I would look and see if there's any games that, or anybody. I would definitely look and see like what games I was playing against who had the top DNs on their team. I would definitely check those out, because I love playing against the top DNs. So I'll always see like who had the top sack leaders from the year before. And see if we were playing them. So I will mark those on my calendar because those are the games where, I get hyped and get excited because I ain't going to let them come in there and get me.
That's right.
So those are the things I used to look at. But I used to love a mid-season bye week because it's crucial to get that rest in the mid. I hate it. I hate it early bye weeks.
The funny thing is I laugh when you say that because I look at for the bye week immediately too. And I ain't playing nothing. But I look for the bye week too because I'm like, wait, are they going to get an early one? Is it going to be late? Are they going to have a chance? Is it coming, is it following Kansas City's bye week? Like I look at so many different things, but it always goes to the bye week. That's the first thing. So there you go. We're on the same page. That's how we roll. Well, not much got past you. You were fantastic at what you did. We found out on Saturday about Derek Carr. He's retiring because of injury. What did you think when you heard that DC was retiring?
Man, if I was DC, I would have took that $33 million.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, I'm messing with you. But nah, man, DC, man, I wish he was still able to play because I felt like DC had so much more football in him, and he had so much more that he could have added to his legacy. DC was a great football player. I love him, man. He helped turn that Raider franchise around. I'm glad I was a part of it. I was glad I was able to witness it. I texted him that day. Me and him texted back and forth a little bit that day. But, everybody's not in a position to be able to walk away from it when they want to. And, that's a good feeling. And I know he feels good about that. He worked hard. I hope Raider Nation appreciates him. And you guys definitely should because he went through a lot, a whole bunch of different coach changes, a whole bunch of different culture. And he stood up every day and answered the hard questions for you guys and gave you guys straight up heart-to-heart answers. And you got to appreciate that because you don't know what he was going through those times. And he went through a lot, and he stood tall, and he came and played for you guys every Sunday. And I always knew every time I was blocking for him, I knew he was going to give me his all. And he gave you guys his all through the thick and thin. So I hope the fans appreciate him because I appreciate him.
So there you go. I hope that was stuff that you enjoyed. I thought it was some really good stuff from DP. Again, man, I had about a 20-minute conversation with him. He was fantastic. He's always really good. I know I'll catch up with him, not only in training camp, but we'll see him at Allegiant Stadium multiple times, just like I do each and every year. Obviously, I'm a guest on my radio show more times than not just because, again, he brings such great knowledge college, and love what he was talking about when it comes to the offensive line coming together, right? How the CBA has affected how they practice, blocking, and, even the fact that, and he was asked about, or I asked him about the power blocking scheme, zone blocking scheme. And, he was saying how athletic he was. So it was easy for him to kind of switch to that, but it's not easy for everyone to go from a power blocking scheme to a zone blocking scheme. And I've never been a huge fan when the Raiders run with the zone blocking scheme. And we do know that that's what they're going to be running. So hopefully these guys are all able to acclimate themselves to what they've got to do and be athletic enough to be really good at that zone blocking scheme. Because again, for Ashton Jeanty to be at his best, the offensive line has got to be at its best as well. But hopefully you enjoyed that from DP. Again, just a few of the minutes of the conversation we had on my radio show on Tuesday. We'll get back to your calls and texts coming up on tomorrow's show, 707-654-4693. Of course, we'll be breaking down the schedule. We'll be looking at the primetime games, when the Raiders' bye week is, how many home games do they have in a row? How many away games do they have? Do they go east to west? Like all that different stuff. We'll look at it about 5,000 different angles. We'll be doing that coming up on tomorrow's show. So that's really all you need to know. That'll be the news and notes. Plus it'll be the big, the big subject of the show as well. So until then, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.